Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another Grow Your Law Firm podcast. And today we have the pleasure of having TannerJones with ConsultWebs. Welcome, Tanner. Glad to have you here, my friend.
Thanks, Ken. Glad to be back.
Yeah, and so Tanner is works with ConsultWebs, which is SEO. They do digital marketing, and actually, I started using them with my old law firm in 2003, and I sold out in 2010. And my partner that I sold out to, I think they're still using you, aren't they?
That's right.
So that's unheard of. You never see anybody stay with an SEO guy, a company probably more than 3 to 7 years. And some of them, you know, they'll have, it's like lawyers having wives. I mean, you know, a lot of them seems like, but, and husbands too, get equal justice for all, right? But anyway, I want to talk today, and Tanner has spoken, and does a lot of articles for our magazine, spoken in a lot of our events. He speaks all over the country. He's a thought leader when it comes to online marketing, and he had such good downloads the last time we did him last year. I wanted to bring him back in because he gave a lot of good content, and that's what this is all about, good content. So welcome back, my friend.
Thank you, Ken. I'm pumped about this topic too, because it's you know, just the overall search landscape is it's a hot topic right now, right?
Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. So it's going to be really this: where are we at? Because there's so many things changing, and you know, it's I'm hearing a lot from lawyers in my masterminds and on the listserv of Pilma, that a lot of them are just giving up on SEO. They just don't think it's worth it anymore. I mean, you know, and the problem is you got the local service ads that just came out, last September. Then you've got the PPC. Then you've got the local maps, the Google deal, the Google My Business. And then you've got the organic. But then on top of the organic, most of the time you've got 3 or 4 directories popping up, so that by the time you get, there's just not that much real estate left for to get on the first page of Google. And the problem is, if you're not on the first page, I mean, it really doesn't matter, does it? I mean, you're wasting money. I think. I mean, you got to be getting. You can't expect to hire an SEO company and get there in 3 months, you know. And I had this happen just this week. One of my members called and said, Ken, I'm just not happy. I've hired this company and I hadn't got any traction. And I said, what SEO company? I said, well, how long have they been doing it? He said, 90 days. I said, man, you got to give them at least 6 months to a year. I said, this is depending on the market. And he was in a big market. I said, this ain't going to happen overnight, my friend. You got to make a big investment. I said, it's not like it used to be. I mean, used to 90 days, you start seeing something. Actually 60 days. I mean, back 10 years ago, I mean, you know, you guys could get stuff on the first page and see, but you know, the competition
so saturated.
Yeah, just so saturated. So what do you sell these? Where do they put their money? I heard some people getting ready. They say, I'm just getting out of PPC. I'm gonna go do LSA ads. You know, that's where it's at. Then I hear some people say, well, we did good on LSA ads in September and October. Now we can't, you know, we're getting a good price, but we just can't, you know, we can't get the volume. We, you know, where we were getting 12, 15 cases, now we're getting 2 or 3, and they're upset about that. You know, and they're upset because people on LSA ads are getting with 23 reviews are getting, and they got 1,000 and they're getting the top, you know, head of them. And we've had a podcast about that already, but let's talk about SEO and where do you invest your money? I mean, you know,
you know, this is going to be full disclaimer. This is different from market to market, from firm to firm. You have to look at, you know, what's working currently. What do you have? If you're a firm and you're sitting there with, you know, 2 to 3 times the amount of reviews on your Google My Business listing, you need to go full throttle on all aspects of both LSAs, the local services ads, because they do also reflect the reviews, as well as SEO, because you have a huge advantage to leverage. If you are so far behind when it comes to your site's longevity, how long it's been around, the authority of the site itself, limited content, limited backlinks coming into it, and you're in a competitive market, I very well may look at that campaign and look at the market and suggest you need to find another place than search engine optimization, because the gap is so significant unless you're willing to invest for, as you said, 6 months being likely minimum, upwards of 12 plus months before they can actually start to see ROI from that. There are not many firms that have the stomach or the appetite to do that. And so I look at it from the standpoint of, control the controllables. First of all, look at the market and evaluate where there are any gaps. If you're in a hyper competitive market, there likely are not very many gaps at all. So it's a matter of determining how much of the search landscape, page one, can we dominate. And this is, simply put, our philosophy is or I say own, it's lease as much space on page one of Google as possible, and that's, you work with a lot of aggressive, progressive advertising firms, Ken, and you see, they're jumping into LSAs all in. And this is the mindset of the marketplace. You have to expect that everyone is pushing for page one visibility. So our belief is that unless you are committed to really working and investing to own page one visibility, you very well are in a position to go look elsewhere to generate marketing and advertising for your firm.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talked about this before, but maybe if they're in a real competitive market, they might even, I mean, you told me this, I'm not taking credit for this because you told me this, is that you might want to go to a smaller market, suburb of your market. Say like if you're in New York City, or say like here in Chicago, maybe you want to go out to the outskirts of, 30 miles away where there's all these little suburbs, towns that maybe not be quite as competitive. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think it's a wise idea if you're willing to do it. There are not a lot of firms willing to do that. And, you have to look honestly at yourself. Are we digging our own grave as a law firm and not being willing to change? We're a digital marketing company, right? We've been there. There's nothing but change in digital marketing. I've mentioned this to you before, but it's like painting a moving train. It's constantly shifting. And today, and really in the last several years, Google has been favoring local proximity, the user, your potential clients, compared to your physical office location. And the closer the search results are, or the closer the businesses are to the user, the more likely they are to pop up in the local maps results. We are seeing local maps results in Google, the 3-pack, being the most prime real estate for law firms. That's where you're going to see ultimately the best lead flow and case signups when you've popped top of page for case driving terms. And so one of the only ways to control that is to control where your physical office is located based on or compared to your hotbed markets, where the majority of your clients reside. And we're seeing a number of successful campaigns, Ken, where we're stepping outside. For example, Atlanta is a good, perfect market for that. So competitive and saturated in the epicenter of the city. But on the outskirts, firms that have strategic office locations in some of these huge, fast growing markets, they're able to get in there early and ultimately grab up as much, search real estate as possible before these big competitors really start jumping in. So we're big believers in that strategy.
Yeah. And I mean, the deal is you could, they make software. I mean, it's probably free, and you might even know what it is. I don't know the name of it, but where you can sit there and take take your case management and pull all your cases for the last 2 years and their addresses, and then put it on some kind of map that'll have look like a little pins, and you can sit there and see where all my clients been coming from, and maybe I need to go relocate an office or a satellite office there and hit Google Maps with it. I mean,
that's it. I mean, the other option is to try to drill it down by zip code, which may be a little easier to manipulate in a spreadsheet, because it'll filter, you can filter it based on zip. And I think that's look at what's been successful in the past. That's ultimately where you're going to see the best opportunity to put fuel on the fire, if you will.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. So you're
Let me
the
make
first
one.
digital marketer that's ever told me that it might not be good to do SEO.
Yeah.
That's what I like about you. You're honest.
We've had many of those conversations over the years, and at the end of the day, firms ultimately, from my experience, every firm wants to grow their cases. They want to pay the least amount as possible for each individual case, and they want to see that trajectory continuing to climb.
Yeah.
And so from my standpoint, when we're consulting firms, if there's not a strategy available there that's going to show, first and foremost, return on investment, you might as well save your money or put it in brand advertising.
That makes sense to me.
I want to make one point too, Ken, that I think is really important to understand when it comes to this is not always possible with hyper competitive markets, big city markets, but some of your listeners who are in mid-sized to smaller markets, really working to own page one real estate in as many places as possible is the big point I want to stress, because if you are showing up in the local services ads, as well as pay-per-click, as well as the Google Maps results with your reviews, and even in addition to the organic search results, the more times you're showing up on page one, there are a number of benefits there. One, you're pushing out competition. You are removing the options and narrowing that to you and to a large degree. But there's also been a number of studies that show when users recognize the name and when they're scrolling through, even if they're scrolling past local services ads and pay-per-click and you're showing up there, it's not costing you anything when they're scrolling past, but you're getting the value of that name recognition and the brand affinity, if you will. And so your click-through rates and your leads are going to be significantly higher. Your dollars work more efficiently for you. And we see it as, a lot of times you look at it with this SEO plus pay-per-click. But really it's more of it's a multiplier effect when you're coupling them together. It's SEO times pay-per-click, because ultimately they make your marketing dollars more efficiently when they work together. Again, it's not always possible, but when a firm's committed to owning as much of that first page real estate as possible, they are naturally going to see the best ROI from our experience.
Yeah. So you said that probably the prime real estate still is the local Google Maps.
That's right.
So can you give our listeners any like 2 or 3 tips of what it takes to get on because you only have 3 there. We call them, used to have 6, now they have 3. We call it a 3-pack. Mm-hmm. So how do you get on the 3-pack?
Yeah, there are a number. I mean, Google suggests there are several elements that are largely outside of your control. One being proximity, as we talked about earlier. You still can control that naturally by opening up other office locations. But that's going to be a big part of it, proximity. But the things that you can absolutely control would be the reviews. And I know you've probably heard that. In fact, I'm sure the majority of your listeners have heard that. But what I would encourage you to do is have a schedule. Google is looking much more today on the consistency of it. And if you look, historically, because we've been pushing reviews for years, you've had a lot of these aggressive law firms jump in and get 300 reviews on their Google My Business profile, and then they've walked away from that practice. And so those are the ones that are actually going to start getting impacted negatively because they've just totally taken their foot off the gas pedal when it comes to reviews. I would much rather see a client generate 2 to 3 positive reviews a month than just generate 50 all at once and stop doing it. Because that's going to be a ranking signal. And Google's also suggesting that is a signal with the local services ads as well. So that's something to keep in mind. The other thing would be making sure you have your profile as complete as possible. Google loves Google. Google's always loved Google. And so the more you treat Google properties as if they're your own web properties, the more Google's typically going to reward that. So some practical examples, making sure you have as many photos added to that Google My Business listing as possible. Photos of the firm, of staff, have a process of adding new photos. If you have anniversaries or celebrations or big wins as the firm, build that into the page or the Google My Business listing itself. You can also have user generated content like photos by other people, adding to that Google My Business profile. And we found that that's a positive signal because it's not just you managing it, it's the public adding to it. So it adds a layer of credibility to it. There are many other factors. I mean, good on-page search engine optimization, good SEO for your website will influence local maps results. Having a strong, trusted domain, those are all important factors that are absolutely in your control. You just have to take the steps toward getting them in place.
When you say a strong domain, what does that mean?
Yeah. So what I look at typically would be a domain rating score or a domain authority score. And for example, there are tools out there that'll basically rate your website from a scale from 0 to 100. 100 being the strongest, 0 being the weakest. And it's mostly manipulated or mostly influenced by the quality of the websites you've surrounded yourself with, the quality of the sites that are pointing links back to your site, essentially trusting your site enough to send their website traffic to your site. So the firms that have invested in good quality SEO and made a lot of quality, relevant connections online with other high authoritative sites likely are the ones that have the stronger domain ratings, the stronger authoritative sites in the marketplace. It's a lot easier to rank a site with a higher trust factor, a higher domain authority than a brand new one with very low authority.
Yeah. So age of the domain's important too, I would think.
Age was a much larger signal in the past. It's said to not be as much. I mean, it's still a factor, certainly. Google's wanting to rank entities, trusted entities today. And if you just created a website and a brand yesterday, it's going to take some time before Google's algorithm is going to be able to really start trusting it.
Yeah, a lot of our mastermind members, they put stuff, they got a systematic way of putting new information, pictures, videos, articles, their blog articles, different things on their Google My Business page.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it helps. So great. So I want to swing around and talk about we talked about the SEO, and do you believe SEO is dead?
I think SEO is far from dead, but I think that's a very relevant question. And you know, I know you and I have had some conversations in the past about, you know, especially with local services ads coming into play. Is it worth even continuing to invest in SEO? And, you know, for the firms that are investing in SEO or considering it, this is such an important thing to consider. What I would tell you, and I have, you know, we help a lot of firms with SEO, clearly. So we have a strong interest in this area. But at the end of the day, it's a matter of following the numbers and just looking objectively at what's happening. There are a number of studies out there that have been looking at where clicks are going now with the local services ads in the mix, but mostly specific to services-based businesses, electricians, plumbers. So it's not even hugely applicable to legal at this point. So it's still early, Ken. But what I look at, again, are the facts. You look at last year, 2020, the most popular year on the internet for Americans. The coronavirus season forced the public online. It changed consumer buying habits, shopping habits. It added a layer of comfortability in that process of going online and vetting businesses and products from your phone. And so if you look at it from that standpoint, there is only going to be increased inventory of people online spending time and or going online to search specifically for a lawyer. So with that, yes, I believe SEO, the maps results, as well as organic, will see a slight drop in click-through rates because of local services ads. It's natural. And those studies I referenced earlier of being services-based businesses, they did indicate some small dips. However, the local maps results and the organic search results still monopolize the clicks and the eyeballs in those studies. People still trust the organic, the non-paid search results, and there's still going to be a natural skepticism of users who know these businesses have paid to show up there. I want to choose one that is showing up there purely based on experience and public results. So to me, I believe that's a big reason to look at SEO continuing to be critically important. I also look at long tail search, Ken. Long tail search is something we've talked about for a long time, still very important. And just to quickly define it, long tail is usually search phrases that are more than a few words. It's like a string of words, a sentence. People are getting much more specific in their search queries. And the more and more people, or the more and more it happens where people are searching very specifically, many times the less your pay-per-click or your local services ads will show up for those types of terms, which presents yet another huge opportunity for firms investing in search engine optimization, ultimately content marketing, to reach those users who have very specific needs, very specific questions. And the more content you have to answer those questions and be a resource, naturally, the more opportunity you have of driving the call and signing the case.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, is there's still tools out there that you can figure out what the long tail searches are? Because I know Google's trying to take more away from our knowledge base.
They're taking more and more away, but it's also, you don't necessarily, you can plan intentionally around concepts, but trying to plan specifically for a certain phrase or a certain string of keywords is going to be much more challenging. Google is smart enough now to understand the intent of the content that you've put in there, and they're going to ultimately be the one to reward that when they see the relevance.
Okay, cool. So we had talked earlier offline about the online buyer's journey. Could you talk about that as it applies to online, and explain the online buyer's journey for our listeners, and how
Definitely.
What we can do to learn, take away from this to improve our search engine marketing?
I think this is an important concept for anyone investing in marketing, online or offline. We've all probably heard of just the concept of a buyer's journey, or thinking through the process of what a user goes through or thinks through before hiring a law firm, or making any type of hiring or purchase decision. Well, Google had, they obviously have a number of departments and researchers. They did a study last year on the buyer's journey and how that has gotten so complex with the web today. And again, coronavirus changing a lot of how we're navigating, behaving online. And so what this study ultimately did is it looked through how users ultimately go through that selection process from point A to point B. But what most don't realize is that point A to point B, there is a messy middle. And they basically illustrated in a diagram where they show, there's a trigger moment for your potential client when they decide they need a lawyer or they need to start seeking legal help. Once that trigger moment happens, they move into basically an exploration and then an evaluation phase. It's basically like a figure eight, where they're just going between these two concepts of doing some very top level, very wide casting research. Then they narrow down and try to drill down on a few options. Usually that's, 3 to 6 law firms. And what we're finding is that it's not just boom, boom, boom to the decision. They're actually going and spending considerable time in this process, evaluating, reading reviews, reading content, educating themselves, because we're living in the day of age where you can access literally anything you want from your mobile device.
Yeah.
And so what it's doing is it's empowering the consumer to make decisions. And why I think this is such an important point and concept to consider as a law firm investing in any marketing is that if you study what's ultimately driving decisions during that exploration process, then you can ensure you have all the ingredients online that's complementing and supporting some of those drivers, the influencers and decisions. And so that study went on to look at basically 6 of the most common biases that influence consumer decision making or consumer hiring. And those 6 I'd like to just kind of talk through. I won't spend too much time on those 6, but I think it'd be helpful to give some practical advice for your listeners, Ken, on what they can do.
Okay.
The first one would be category heuristics. And this one really is more so, they describe it as being just short descriptions of your key products, making it as simple as possible to understand what it is you're offering. And, if you're a marketer, that makes sense. It's so important to keep it simple. And what I would encourage you to do when you go to your homepage on your website, do you have good, large visual buttons that represent your main practice areas? Going even deeper into that, if you click into your main, say your car accident page or your family law page, making sure that it's simplified, that above the fold, the first impression that user gets, do not overwhelm them with options. Keep it simple and guide that user through the process. That's so simple, but yet so important to trigger this, to be able to give that comfortability for the user. It's also going to be good for search engine optimization. The other ones, let me just run through quickly what all the other 5 are. The power of now. So basically just convenience, quick, immediacy. It's big. Social proof, hearing from others, how good you are or how trustworthy you are. Scarcity bias. This is an interesting one I want to come back to, but basically how can you create the perception or create your business to be more desirable through having less inventory or less availability. The other one would be authority bias. And so basically being influenced by local influencers or experts or trusted resources in the community. And then the last one is the power of free, getting something for free, something of value as part of working with your business. So I'm curious from you, Ken, any of those stand out that you think would be worth discussing?
Google could have just called me. I could have told them all this. They didn't have to do all that study. I mean, this is the same stuff that's been going on for 80 years. I mean, the deal, I mean, I don't know about the scarcity. Well, actually, yeah, I do. But the deal is that first word you said, futuristic or whatever. But the deal is we've always said it takes 5, 6, 7, 8 touches before they make a decision. I mean, we know that. And most lawyers still do not do anything, but just, when they have contact with them. And the other deal is if you've got a book or report, that takes care of 3 out of those 6, gives you authority. It's something free they can download. You know what I'm saying?
And if you could have an influencer to endorse that asset, then you're able to put them all together.
Yeah.
That's right.
And it's something, it's free, it's authority, and it educates them. And that's what they're trying to figure out, information. And if you can make it real biased towards, you can do it without, I used to do a book and I had the 7 or 9 questions you ask a PI lawyer before you hire them. And I had it set up to where I would look like a superstar and the other lawyers might not, that they asked that question, but I would get 100 on that. I would get 7 out of 7 or 9 out of 9 right. And so, there's a way of doing that. And I've always said, the more you tell, the more you sell.
Well, one, you had brought up an idea in the past about board certification. I thought that's an interesting concept, which is, available in certain lanes. I think that'd be a tremendous way for.
And we always know that testimonials. I mean, I've always said what you say about yourself is good, but what others say about you is golden. I mean, and I think videos is where I really think this is the year of video. I really do, and I think the pandemic has helped even push it further because people are getting more used to looking at videos and looking, online. I think it's becoming a lot more comfortable. What was the other one? What was the other one?
Power of now.
Scarcity.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that I think is hard. I think that would be hard for lawyers. I think you could do it. But I think the only way you could do it is you would have to, I call it reverse psychology, where, and scarcity is reverse psychology. Okay, that's what it is. I mean, the deal is, the more you tell somebody they can't have something, the more they want it, right?
That's right.
And so the deal is, I think if you were doing it where instead of just, free consultation, everybody says free consultation, say, fill out this form or talk to this person and see whether or not Mr. Hardison will be you qualified to talk to Mr. Hardison to take your case. Now that's kind of gutsy, and a lot of lawyers won't want to do it. But I always hear lawyers say, "I just want the good cases. I just want the good cases." Now what you could do is if they didn't and say, we got another law firm that can handle it. We're a very good law firm, but then you could refer those out and get referral fees. But if you really wanted to get the cream of the crop, that's the way to do it. And that would make people want you more.
Mm-hmm.
And if you got the authority, like you said, with the book and the different things and the certification, I've seen it. I mean, Gary Hallbert he's dead, deceased, but he was one of the best copywriters in the world ever. He made millions, and of course he blew it all too, but he had a lot of fun doing it. They say, I don't know, I won't there, but he used to wear a hat. He used to go to conferences and speak, and he'd have a hat that says, I don't want your business, or I don't need your business, or something, and people would just rush up to the stage trying to hire him. Mm-hmm. And what he did, he just tripled and quadrupled his prices and still got, and he made a killing. He put up that scarcity that I'm not taking anymore. Have you ever heard? I know some domestic lawyers that I've called, I've seen people call and they say, we're not taking any more clients right now. Mm-hmm. Boy, that makes you really want to go, well, I got to have this lawyer.
Yeah. You think people jumped ahead of you and beat you to it.
The problem with PI is that everybody's on every little case. So mm-hmm. it's a gutsy move, but I mean, the deal is it could work. I mean, mm-hmm. I don't know if anybody's doing it, but it would be a gutsy call. I would want a safety valve in there so that I didn't lose all the income off the case. I'd mm-hmm. have a place to siphon it to get a referral fee if that's possible in your state. It's interesting though, and now, and that's the whole big deal now. I mean, everybody wants everything instant gratification. I've always tell people, if you got like 3 to 5 minutes to answer an inquiry off of online, and we've talked about this before. Mm-hmm. I mean, I get on lawyers, and I'll say this to everybody, all my listeners, and I hope you're not one of them, but there's a lot of lawyers that they pay good money to people like Tanner to get them leads, and then they wait a couple hours before they deal with them, or they'll set an appointment for 2 weeks away, and they're going to lose 90% of these cases. They're not going to get them mm-hmm. because these people are looking for an answer right then. Don't mean they're going to hire you right then, but they're looking for an answer right then.
Yeah.
And if you don't give it to them, there's a bunch of them down underneath you on that list on Google that they're going to pick up and call the phone and talk to that lawyer. And, you waste. I've seen a lot of wasted money, either that or they just do terrible intakes and make them feel like that mm-hmm. they're, that you're doing them a favor to even talk to them. And what you got to be is empathetic, and really act like you care. I mean, they don't care till they know how much you care. That's another good saying. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, I think, hey, would you be willing to share that report? We could put it in the notes at the end of this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share that. I'd also like to share, we just released a trends and predictions, legal trends and predictions.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah, I read that.
It's a great resource. I think your users will or your listeners rather, will get a lot of value from that. So I'll make sure we drop both that research article from Google and the resource.
Great, man. Anything else before we go today? Anything you want to add? Anything that we missed that you think is important that our people need to know about the landscape out there on digital marketing?
To me, it's a matter of consistency. If I'm going to boil it all down to, when it comes to marketing on Google and working to own as much of that real estate as possible, consistency is big. Consistency with respect to content marketing, consistency with reviews, as we talked about, consistency with monitoring cost per lead and just really religiously following those numbers, cost per lead, cost per case, and monitoring the trajectory of the campaign. That's the only way that you're going to continue to learn and get better and ultimately be more successful, help more clients. The other piece that I can't, have this whole conversation around and not mention is the power of brand and how a powerful brand, a recognizable brand, will beat any SEO campaign out any day. And that ultimately, I mean, it supports SEO, it supports paid, it supports everything else. But without a trusted brand, without a recognizable brand in the market, you're frankly going to spend a lot more per case than the other firms. Invest in your brand. And that comes, you can do that through remarketing, through video advertising online, through social media, just pushing your brand in a positive way to the market as much as you can possibly invest, because it's going to feed everything else that you're doing.
Yeah. And hadn't you found, I don't know if it's true. I knew it was 2 or 3 years ago, but the clients you take on, the lawyers you take on that are on TV or on radio, they actually do better quicker on SEO than the ones that don't.
No doubt. Yep. No doubt. And it's a rising tide.
It kind of supports what you're saying about the brand. The more you can brand, the more you're seen everywhere. If people recognize it when they see your name online, and that's why you see the 800-pound gorillas. They know that, and they just pump it on in there. Millions and millions on TV and radio.
That's right.
Yeah. So we're talking about speaking, and you're going to be speaking at our Lawyers Internet Domination Boot Camp Pilma's putting on April 22nd, 23rd, and I look forward to that. I look forward to that. We've juggled it up, and we got a lot of new speakers on a lot of new subjects. It's going to be interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to hear what you got to share, because you always have something innovative and always something that people can take back, and that's what we like about our. I'm not going to say that we've got the biggest speakers as far as name recognition, but I will say this, and I'll put my event against anybody else's. They'll get more practical take home nuggets that they can take and use to make money. We might not make them feel like a Tony Robbins event that they just left that all jacked up, go own the world. But what we're going to do is we'll give them stuff that they could own the world. I'll promise you that. And I don't know. You've been in a bunch of them. You know what I'm talking about.
I can absolutely speak to these boot camps, Ken. I've found that there's nothing like it out there. I mean, we've been doing this, helping law firms online for 2 decades now, and I've yet to come across such a high impact 2-day session where it's just nothing but information. It's drinking from a fire hose. And I say that with all, positive respects, because it is a matter of, it's just as fast as you can write down, and ultimately how much you're willing to do to make it happen once you leave that event. But I'm excited about it, Ken. Always look forward to these.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to get up with you or ask you more, or even, talk to you about using you, what your services, how can I get up with you, Tanner?
Yeah. Check us out online, ConsultWebs.com. And just reach out to us there, phone or contact form. I'd love to have a conversation and see if, there's an opportunity to guide you in a good direction.
Well, I appreciate it as always. And I look forward to seeing and hearing you and it's going to be a virtual conference, so everybody can go, and we're going to have videos of it. So even if you can't make it, if you go ahead and register, we'll send you a video, because we're not going to sell videos separate. It's all in one package. I've tried it different ways, and this is the way that works best for everybody. So we're going to have a deal when you pay, you can attend it live and you'll get the videos, or you can just say, I'll just wait and get the videos, but you're going to pay the same price. And it does go up April 1st. It goes up like $300. So anyway, thank you so much. Until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.